Welcome back to the Future Self podcast. Welcome to season 2, episode 5, projections. Now, in today's episode, it's not necessarily going to be talking only about projections, but just educating and insighting what projections are, the impact that they can have, how we analyze when people are projecting, but also the skill set or the learnt tool that people's comments, opinions, and thoughts about you aren't always related to you directly. They aren't always what you are doing. They aren't always based around the actions you're making or the choices you're choosing. Because 9 times out of 10, a lot of the time, another person's opinion or thought isn't really stemming from you. It's stemming from something deep within themselves, deep inside, from either their history, their past choices or thoughts, or the personal personality they have molded today. Now, before we do, it's fucking blowing my mind that we are halfway through season 2. We're already halfway through. It's the second episode now in the new studio, and forgive me a little bit because I said in the first episode in the new studio that I'd have it all set up, but I'm in a little bit of a creativity thought processing behind how I want this podcast to be, how I want the layout to be. I don't know if I want it to be close like this in the last episode. I don't know if I want it to be further away. I don't know if I want to change up how the couch is or the side tables. I'm just giving myself some time to allow it to be thought about and planned. So I feel like the end of season 2 and the start of season 3 is when I'll really step into that light. But even still, if it stays the way it is, I'm fucking stoked and loving how the look is. The feedback on the episode just previous was fucking amazing. The comments on being closer, more personal, more engaging. So that's why we're running it again. We're staying with the same system. But let's get into the episode, right? Today's conversation, today's topic about projection. Something I've really delved into quite a lot recently over the last 2 years. Something I analyze with a lot of people. I think a little deeper is the fact that people's comments or opinions about you, or talking from a personal standpoint, people's comments about me on what I'm doing, how I'm doing things, why I'm doing things, isn't necessarily an issue with what I'm doing. A lot of the time I've started to notice it's a projection. Something's being projected from within that individual that makes them feel the need to comment or think or downplay or put something negative towards me. It's something that I really had to dive into because it started happening quite a bit, where I was listening to the comments and thoughts of other people. I started questioning myself on what I was doing, why I was doing it, my intentions behind what exactly I was doing, the vision I had for the future, the way I was coaching, the way I was living my life, how I was with my friends, how I was with the people around me. I needed to understand why people felt the need to criticize it, comment on it, and just always say things about what I am doing. Now, I would label myself as a very conflict adverse living individual. I very rarely, if ever, get involved in drama. I very rarely am interested in the gossip or talking shit about people. It's just not the life I live. It's not the life I live because I don't see a need for it. I lack the time and energy or the mental capacity to engage in those types of things. I'm not a perfect human. I'm not saying that I'm above everyone and I don't do it. I think most humans do. And there's definitely times there's slip ups where I catch myself out engaging in something that just ultimately is a waste of time. But there always felt this experience where people were commenting on the things I was doing or how I did things. And it just felt like the way I was living my life had so much relevance to so many people. Now, I'm not naive. I am across all different social media platforms. I work with a lot of individuals. I've worked with fucking hundreds of individuals on a one-to-one close coaching basis. I work in a gym, I socialize, I see people all the time, every day. I post a lot about my life, my achievements, my wins, losses, the things I struggle with. So I can understand why people get engaged and why people are interested in what I'm doing, which I love. That's a lot of why I am on social media. I want to engage and share the things I'm doing and why I'm doing it. But with that came the experience of people also having comments on everything I was doing in a non-progressive light. You're so shut off. You're so this. You're so that. Why do you train that way? Why do you coach people that way? You never come to social events. Why don't you drink? Why don't you take shit from people? There was always this experience of not even just asking the question, but me hearing about other people's comments. So I had to dive into it. I had to work out why. Why do people do this, and why is it something that I don't understand? And over the course of my self-development and my course of my studies towards humans and myself and coaching and the lifestyle and mindset-based dynamics, I was learning that humans project really fucking easily, and they project often. Easy and often, which is a combination for high frequency, of course, often, right? So if something's easy to do and you're doing it often, there's a high frequency that it's going to be done in most things that you do. It's going to be relevant in a lot of different areas, topics, relationships, and dynamics that you have with other human beings. So I was learning the experience that, it's not the issue of the things I'm doing or how I'm doing things that people have, it's projections. People don't like seeing a young 22-year-old male be successful because they're projecting that that's not them, or they were projecting that they weren't able to do that. People didn't like the way I was coaching because they weren't doing it that way. They didn't think of it themselves. People didn't like the way I was with other human beings, where I wouldn't show up to social events, or I'd say no and prioritize myself because they weren't able to do that. They felt the need to make comments on it because it was things that they weren't doing. Now, I'm sure every single person has heard of the phrase that you don't like in other individuals what you don't like in yourself. So, when you were younger and someone said something mean to you, normally a parent would say, "Oh, that's okay. They're just saying that because they're jealous, or they're saying that because they envy you." And then when you become an older adult, the phrase changes a little bit, where the statement is the fact that people don't like in you what they don't like in themselves. And that is a very cliche quote because it's commonly used and commonly known, but it's not directly applied in reality with how those words create the phrase to be. You don't like in others what you don't like in yourself. So you might sit there after me saying that and go, well, this person does X, but I don't even do that. Or this person does Y, but I've never done that before. That's also the second part of what that phrase states. So people don't like about others what they don't like within themselves. So one of my pet peeves is punctuality. I dislike when people are late. I don't like when people don't prioritize and show up on the time they are supposed to. Now, I'm someone, again, not a perfect human, but I'm someone who's always on time, or I'll always be early, or if it's a priority to me, I'll be there before the time I need to be, or I'll be very closely linked to the time I need to be there. So why would I not like it in other humans? If, again, the quote or the phrase is, people don't like in others what they don't like in themselves, I don't do that, so it's not a part of myself. But this is the second thought processing aligned to that quote. I wouldn't like it if I was doing that myself. So I wouldn't like if I was a late individual. I might not like someone else being late, not because I'm a late human, but because I wouldn't like it if I became a late human. So there's two parts to it. You might not like the insecurities and flaws you have within your own personality and person that you see other people do. That might be something you don't like. but you might also not like in others what you wouldn't like yourself doing. So that's why that phrase can make a little bit more sense, because there's two different thought processings behind it. It's not just I do this so I dislike it in other people. There's also that thought process that if I did that, I wouldn't like myself doing it. So that's why it's a trait I don't like. So for instance, to link it back into this episode about projection, I fucking dislike it when other people don't think with a high emotional intelligence, or they don't bother diving deeper than just the surface, and they make comments about what someone else is doing. I don't do that myself. I don't make those lacked surface level comments anymore, because I understand that humans are complex, and I understand that everyone acts from what they've experienced or a trauma they have, or most of the time just acting the best way they know how to at that time. So I don't do that myself. I'm not someone to make surface level judgments, but I would fucking hate it within myself if I was. I would hate it if I was lacking the education and emotional intelligence to understand that that human might not be malicious. They might not be acting from a negative or detrimental intent, but they're doing it just from a way of what they know. It might not be the best effort they could, but they might be acting the best they can given the complexity of how they are as a human being. So what is a projection then? What is projecting as a topic? Through my eyes, projecting is an issue someone has within themselves, but they make it your fault or your responsibility, or they put you through the experience of dealing with that. So someone's having a very stressful week, they're not coping, they're not happy, and then something you're doing for them pisses them off, and they lash out or they react and they burdenize you for that. That's a projection. They're projecting their issues onto you. People can project so many things. They can project their views, such as politics, they can project their emotions, they can project their experiences, their thought processing, what they think in their head is right or wrong. Projection is a big, wide range of potential experience, because it can stem from so many different root factors. It can stem from the ground of so many different things. The most common projection I experience is what I'm doing myself that others aren't able to do, they didn't think to do themselves, or they don't believe in themselves enough, so they project onto me a negative trait. Doing a podcast, it's nothing but positive in my eyes. I'm trying to have a conversation with you guys. I'm trying to branch out, reach more people, but it was met with people's negative comments, which I registered to be a projection. Some people were projecting that they were too insecure to do one themselves, so they put some hate towards it. Some people were projecting that they don't care about other humans as much, so they disliked the idea of a podcast. Why bother? What's the point? It's a waste of time. The episodes are silly. What you talk about is stupid. It's over the top. Projection is not an excuse or a way to just sum up a lacking of responsibility you have in a situation. So if you're doing something wrong or something that someone doesn't agree with, we don't just categorize or sum it up to be a projection. If I'm treating someone a certain way that in my head I think is the right way, and someone brings me up on it, I don't just categorize, oh, you're projecting. You need to be very careful with how you differentiate projection from what actually is being projected, comparative to something you need to change or own up to or progress. So for instance, when I'm trying to help my one-to-ones, if I have a different viewpoint, it would be weird for them to sit there and go, oh, you're just projecting. You're projecting your ideals. Projection's normally in the limelight of negativity. It is normally trying to bring someone down. It's trying to have an impact on someone to get them to do something that isn't necessarily positive or progressive. This week, I experienced projection from so many different people, clients, friends, family, randoms, others I know. And not all projection is detrimental or bad. Some people might just put something on you, and that's okay. If you're strong enough to understand that they didn't mean it or it wasn't meant to be malice, it doesn't have to be blown up into a big deal. Some projections are, of course, bigger than others. Some aren't that big of a deal. Some hold a heavy weighing percentage. Some might not align with you, so you just brush it off or shrug it off. The area I find to be most upsetting for projection is when a vulnerable individual, male or female, older or younger, is trying to progress themselves, progress their life, work on who they are, but they're vulnerable. They're not backed by the confidence. They're not backed by the known experience of what they're doing to be the right thing. They're susceptible to the comments of what others make or the judgments of what other people have on them. And that's fucking upsetting. That's what I hate. That's when I really try to educate. It's a projection. It is not the reality of the situation. So for instance, someone having an issue with another girl wearing a crop top to the gym, that's probably a projection of insecurity from that individual. I experience it so often in older individuals, male or female, that when they want to work on themselves and progress their health and their lifestyle, their partner can clash on that. And if they clash on that, they're projecting. They're projecting that they're not willing to do it themselves. They don't want their partner to change. They're comfortable. So they will make comments. What's the point? You're fine the way you are. What a waste of time. You won't be able to see it through. You won't be strong enough. Anytime someone makes a comment or judgment on you, it has the potential to be a projection from them. If anyone is saying anything negative about you as a person or the choices you're making to do different, it's not always the reality of the situation. If someone says you're not strong enough, you'll end up giving up. That's not the reality of the situation. That could be a projection from that individual. If someone says you're not capable to do something, that's not necessarily the reality. It could be a projection from that individual. You always see projection being relevant in the limelight of trying to regress someone or hold someone back. When another individual is doing different from others, they're trying to do better than what they have been doing. They're trying to push themselves to be a better human being, live a better life. That's when projection becomes so prevalent and it becomes so intensely experienced comparative to what it was when you were just doing what you were doing beforehand. And it's because people don't like to see people doing better than them. People don't like to see others achieving higher, achieving different, achieving what they weren't able to achieve. This episode isn't to highlight that humans are negative and they're bad and no one's rooting for you. It's not that at all. What I'm trying to get you to understand is that what you are doing and the comments and judgments people have towards that isn't always the reality. So don't let it become. Don't hear a comment, emotionally react, let it fester and build. Let that dictate your reality. Let that dictate your future, because you're then allowing for that. A projection isn't a dictator of choices that are made moving forwards. Projection is the opportunity presented to have a negative impact on you only if you allow it to do so. Only if you allow it to do so. It is still you in control. It is still you with the power to not listen, not take on, not allowing it to alter your choices or the pathway you're taking moving forwards. People are always going to have shit things to say about others. It's easier for a lot of people to say a shit thing than a good thing, because a shit thing fuels your ego. You're putting someone down. A good thing can impact your ego. You're elevating someone, potentially elevating and bringing them higher than where you might sit or stand. That's why gossiping brings people closer together rather than building people up. You very rarely see two people conversating good things about one person and that bringing them together. But you see and experience so commonly people gossiping and bitching and coming together just to talk shit because it's easier to do so than it is to elevate. So if it's easier to see the negative bias of an individual, it's easier for a human being to say a bad thing over a good thing, it's going to happen more. Just because it happens more doesn't mean it's the truth, doesn't mean it's the reality of the situation, doesn't mean it is the actuality of how things are. But if you act in that way after hearing it and allow for it, then it does become the reality. It literally becomes the truth. There's a quote I've read before, and it was a story about a teacher who was doing mathematics in different years of the schooling system. So the younger years, such as kindy and year 1, then the younger, older years, such as year 5 and 6, and then year 8, and I think it was 11 and 12. And this teacher purposely did times tables. So they were writing the times tables on the board. They got 9 of them right because they were writing up 10 different. They got 9 right, 1 wrong. And every single time it happened, the class uproared with laughter or judgment that they got 1 wrong. There was a total disregard that 9 things was done right. There was a disregard that individual had gotten 9 things right, but there was a big drama and uproar about the 1 thing that was done wrong. So that applied to the things we do, linking back to what I was just saying before. It's easier to highlight the things being done wrong, so it's more likely you're going to experience that. But the experience of that isn't being told in the reality of how things are. Someone's just speaking through their reality, which they lack the understanding that they're projecting it onto you. Why the fuck would someone have an issue with you losing weight? Why the fuck would someone have an issue with you building muscle? Why the fuck would someone have an issue with you going to the gym, progressing your finances, being a better human? Like, why the fuck would someone have an issue with that? If someone was genuinely rooting for you and only ever thought about wanting good things for you, why would there be an issue with you becoming a better human or working towards being one? Projection. That's why. This whole episode is just trying to highlight that the negative things you experience or hear about yourself, or the fear of judgment you have, or the worry towards what other people will think or care, it doesn't fucking matter. People are going to project. And here's the thing, right? It's not a projection of the reality of how things are. It's a projection of the experience that individual has. So if you really think about it, no matter what you're doing, you're never going to be seen completely positive. I coach plenty of individuals on a weekly basis, quite a lot in person and online, yet it's still met with backlash, or there's still an issue. I show up, I bust my ass, I do the best I can for the people in my life, but there's always going to be an issue, which, like I said, I'm a conflict avoidant human. I show up and do the best I can every single week, but there's still issues. How the fuck does that equation come about? Well, there's an outlier in that equation, and that equation is impacted by projection. People will have issues with what you're doing, no matter what you're doing, no matter what it is, because they're reacting out of their reality. They might not be thinking with emotional intelligence, or they might not see it to be deeper than the surface level of thought they've only ever have to think with. So just fucking do it anyway. Just do it. I'm not trying to have this episode be a motivator towards fuck everyone's thoughts, just do it. I'm just trying to highlight a different perspective that no matter what you do, there's going to be an issue. The issue isn't always the reality of how things are. So you may as well just go and do what you want to do, because it's going to be met with projection and issues regardless. A negative comment can always be made out of anything. You give money to someone, there still could be a negative comment made out of that from a human being, because it could be projected. There's a recent thing at the moment of a guy called Adrian who runs a big giveaway company who gave away a $4 million home, which was met with backlash. He's literally giving away almost charitable, in the sense that you buy a raffle ticket and he's giving a $4 million home away, but it was met with backlash. How the fuck can that be met with backlash? It was nothing but a positive situation. But again, projection. There's hundreds of humans projecting their thoughts, their opinions, their experiences onto this situation. So even the most positive situation can still have a negative impact from other individuals. So wear that crop top, start your fitness journey, build your muscle, progress your finances, act in the way you want to act, wear those clothes, post that photo, do what you want to do, because there's always going to be positive, negative, for and against, open and closed. There's always a balance of both that's going to come into play. So you may as well just live life on your terms and do the things you want to do. I appreciate you tuning in. I really, really appreciate you taking the time on YouTube, if you don't have YouTube Premium, to sit there and watch this face in this studio setup talk about topics that I'm passionate about, that I care about, and that I want other people to be able to see differently. Every situation has a million different perspectives that it could be seen through, and I'm just sharing mine. I'm just sharing one more on top of the way you see things. I appreciate you liking, subscribing, sharing. Those who share this on their social medias, it matters so much to me, and I cannot thank you enough. It just allows more people to join this channel, and I feel like this channel has a positive impact on others. It has the potential to be life-changing in some episodes, and that's when you guys share that, it really lengthens the pathway of people this can meet. But I appreciate you tuning in. I am forever grateful for you spending your Saturday, or if you save this for during the week and you're watching it then, whatever day it is, I'm always grateful for you guys. I appreciate you. Projection is more than just the reality of what a situation seems to be. It's very rarely how things are. So don't let it become your reality. Don't take it on. Don't act through the opinions and thoughts of other people. Big love, look after yourself, and keep doing it for the future you.